You're a millionaire. Not billionaire rich, but comfortable. You've got the mansion, the luxury cars, the vacation properties scattered across 3 continents. You've done safari in Tanzania, climbed Kilimanjaro with a Sherpa who carried literally everything while you just walked and took credit for it. And you've been to that one restaurant in Copenhagen where they serve you a single radish on a moss-covered rock and call it a culinary journey. The bill was $400. You paid it without blinking. But now you're bored. You've seen everything, done everything. Regular experiences don't hit the same anymore. Skydiving feels pedestrian. Bungee jumping is something college kids do. You need something bigger, something that makes you feel alive again. And then you hear about it. An expedition, a chance to descend 12,500 feet to the bottom of the North Atlantic and see the Titanic. Not a museum replica, not a James Cameron movie set, the actual ship, the one that sank in 1912 and took 1,500 people with it. The price? $250,000 per person, which sounds absolutely insane until you remember that's basically what you spent on your daughter's wedding, and at least this way you don't have to give a speech or dance awkwardly in front of your relatives. So you sign up. You show up on the day, they hand you the waiver, it's 43 pages long, the word death appears 16 times, you sign it anyway because you didn't get rich by reading fine print. You climb inside the submersible. It's smaller than you expected. Much smaller. There are no seats, just a floor, one tiny viewport to look out of, and the entire machine, this vessel that's about to take you to the deepest part of the ocean, is controlled by what appears to be a PlayStation controller, a regular off-the-shelf gaming controller. The door is bolted shut from the outside, 17 bolts. You cannot open it yourself from the inside. You think, that's a bit of an odd design choice, but you're committed now. No turning back. The sub drops into the water. You start descending. It'll take 2.5 hours to reach the bottom. You're excited. This is going to be incredible. Spoiler alert, it's not going to go well. The first 1,000 feet go by slowly, then 3,000, then 5,000. The sunlight disappears fast. Outside the viewport, the water shifts from bright blue to deep blue to absolute black. You hear creaking sounds from the hull. The pilot says it's normal, just the sub adjusting to the pressure. You believe him. At 12,000 feet, the pressure outside is approximately 5,600 pounds per square inch. That number doesn't mean much until you put it in context. A car tire runs at about 32 psi. A fire hose blasts at around 300 psi. You are currently surrounded by pressure equivalent to having a small car balanced on every single square inch of your body. The only thing standing between you and instant oblivion is the hull of this submarine. And here's where things get interesting. Hey, quick question before we continue. Which of these 4 things was not on board the submersible? A, a PlayStation controller. B, expired carbon fiber. C, duct tape. D, an emergency escape hatch. If you guessed D, congratulations. You correctly identified the one safety feature that might have actually been useful when you're bolted inside a carbon fiber cylinder at the bottom of the ocean with no way to open the door yourself. The PlayStation controller? Real. It actually controlled the thrusters. The expired carbon fiber? Also real. The hull was manufactured in 2020 and had already exceeded its recommended stress cycle lifespan by the time of this dive. The duct tape? Let's just say the maintenance team got creative. Emergency escape hatch? Not an option. Never was. Now back to our millionaires who are approximately 3 seconds away from experiencing what 5,600 pounds of water pressure does to a human body. Let's talk about what's actually happening around you right now. When engineers design deep-sea submersibles, they typically use titanium spheres. Spheres distribute pressure evenly across the entire surface. There are no weak points. Titanium doesn't crack under compression. It's expensive, it takes up space, and it's boring. But every single person who has ever dived in one has come back alive. OceanGate had a different idea. What if instead of a sphere, you used a cylinder? More room inside, cheaper to manufacture. And instead of titanium, what if you used carbon fiber? It's lighter, it's modern, it looks innovative. Here's the problem. Carbon fiber is phenomenal under tension, meaning pulling forces. That's why it's used in aircraft wings and Formula One cars. But under repeated compression cycles, meaning pressure building up, releasing, it develops microfractures, tiny cracks you can't see with the naked eye, invisible damage that accumulates with every single dive. Think of it like bending a paperclip back and forth. First few times, fine. Keep doing it, and eventually it snaps. Except when this particular paperclip snaps, you don't just lose a paperclip. Here's the timeline of your final descent, minute by minute. Minutes 0 to 30. You're descending at about 80 feet per minute. The lighting inside the cabin is minimal, just a few LEDs casting everything in a dim glow. You're sitting cross-legged on the floor because there are no seats. You watch through the viewport as the water outside changes color and then disappears into darkness entirely. You take photos, even though you know they won't turn out great. You paid $250,000 for this. You're allowed to be a tourist. Minutes 30 to 90. You're an hour in and the cramped space is starting to feel claustrophobic. One of the passengers is a teenager. His father brought him as a Father's Day gift because apparently a fishing trip felt too ordinary. People are making conversation, trying to outdo each other's near-death experiences. Someone climbed Everest. Someone swam with great whites. Everyone's got a story. The irony is that they're all about to share the most extreme near-death experience imaginable, and none of them will be around to tell it. The pressure outside is now over 3,000 psi. The hull creaks occasionally. The CEO reassures everyone this is completely normal. It's just the sub settling. One passenger asks about life support redundancy. The CEO explains there are backup CO2 scrubbers and reserve oxygen. Everyone relaxes. Fun fact, backup oxygen is completely irrelevant when the event that kills you takes less than 1 millisecond. Minutes 90 to 120, you're almost there, 12,000 feet. The creaking has stopped. Everything is eerily quiet except for the hum of the thrusters. The pilot is exchanging text messages with the surface support ship. Yes, text messages. The communication system works by sending acoustic pulses through the water that get converted into text on the other end. It's slow, but it works. You're getting excited again. 10 more minutes and you'll see the Titanic. You've been dreaming about this moment. You paid $250,000 for it. It's about to pay off. And then you hear it. One more creak. The carbon fiber hull, after dozens of previous dives, after being compressed and decompressed hundreds of times, finally reaches its critical failure point. A fracture that has been slowly growing for months, invisible to every inspection, propagates through the material at supersonic speed. The structural integrity disappears in an instant. 5,600 pounds per square inch of water pressure. All of it, every last bit of it that this hull has been holding back, rushes inward simultaneously. This is not a leak. This is not a slow flood. This is not the kind of disaster where you have time to be afraid, or say a prayer, or grab someone's hand. The air inside the cabin compresses so violently, so instantaneously, that it heats to several thousand degrees Celsius. For a fraction of a moment measured in microseconds, the interior of that submarine is hotter than the surface of the sun. And then it's over. The entire event, from structural failure to complete destruction, takes less than 1 millisecond. For context, the fastest human reflex, the blink of an eye, takes between 100 and 150 milliseconds. The nerve signal traveling from your eyes to your brain takes 20 milliseconds just to begin processing. Your brain needs 250 milliseconds to register visual information. You are dead before your neurons finish telling your eyes what they're looking at. There's no moment of realization, no flash of panic, no, oh God, this is it, no transition, no fade to black, no tunnel of light, no final thought that manages to complete itself. Most deaths give you at least a few seconds. Drowning takes minutes. Freezing takes hours. Even a gunshot wound allows the brain a few milliseconds to register what happened. This is different. One moment you exist, the next moment you don't. The sentence just stops mid. Quick reality check before we wrap up. The OceanGate submersible Titan imploded in June 2023, killing all 5 people on board. The debris field was discovered 4 days later, approximately 1,600 feet from the Titanic's bow section. Here's what makes this tragedy particularly infuriating. Multiple people saw it coming. Industry experts warned for years that carbon fiber was not suitable for repeated deep-sea compression cycles. Former OceanGate employees raised safety concerns and were dismissed. The submersible was never certified by any recognized regulatory body, not the American Bureau of Shipping, not any independent third-party testing organization. Nothing. The CEO publicly described safety regulations as obscenely safe and argued they stifled innovation. Turns out, those regulations exist because sometimes unchecked innovation turns paying customers into a cloud of fine particles at the bottom of the ocean. There are dozens of deep-sea submersibles that have completed thousands of dives without a single incident. They use titanium spheres. They're boring, they're over-engineered, and every single person who has ever climbed inside one has come home. Let's zoom out for a second, because this is about more than one submarine. Why do wealthy people keep paying enormous sums of money to do extraordinarily dangerous things for essentially no practical reason? Climbing Everest costs around $100,000. You're literally stepping over frozen corpses in the death zone while a Sherpa carries your supplemental oxygen. Space tourism will cost you $450,000 for about 3 minutes of weightlessness and a lifetime of telling everyone at dinner parties that you technically went to space. When you have enough money that regular experiences stop feeling special, you start chasing increasingly extreme versions of feeling something, anything. The price tag becomes part of the appeal. The danger becomes the point. But here's the thing, $250,000 could fund clean water infrastructure for an entire village. It could cover full college scholarships for multiple students. It could pay for life-saving medical procedures for dozens of people. Or you could use it to stare at a rusty shipwreck for 8 minutes before it kills you. I'm not saying wealthy people are bad for spending money on experiences. People can spend their money however they choose. But maybe, just maybe, do a basic cost-benefit analysis before climbing into an uncertified tube held together with creative engineering solutions and a PlayStation controller. Check for certifications. Ask whether industry experts have raised concerns. Actually read the waiver. If it mentions death 16 times, let that number sit with you for a moment. And if someone tells you that safety regulations are just red tape that stifles innovation, congratulations, you found someone who is about to innovate you into an early grave. So there you have it. The good news about dying in a submersible implosion, it's completely painless. You feel nothing. There is no suffering whatsoever. The bad news, you spent $250,000 for it. Look, if you want to climb Everest, go for it. If you want to jump out of a plane, great. Life is short and experiences matter. But please make sure that the people responsible for keeping you alive actually prioritize keeping you alive. Make sure the equipment is built to the right standards, inspected by independent experts, and certified by someone who has something to lose if it fails. There are plenty of extraordinary experiences in the world that don't require betting your life on a hole that's already past its expiration date. And if you absolutely must see the Titanic, James Cameron made a movie about it. It's 3 hours long, the soundtrack is iconic, the special effects are genuinely impressive, and your survival rate upon finishing it is essentially 100%. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and the next time someone offers you a seat on an experimental submarine to the bottom of the ocean, maybe just treat yourself to a really nice dinner instead. Your family will appreciate it. Trust me.